Steelers fans, I got a question for you. Do you hate the Baltimore Ravens? Because I hate the Baltimore Ravens, and if you're watching the show, I know you hate those Ratbirds too. Welcome into the Steelers Talk live show. It's Ravens Hate Week here on Steelers Talk. We got a bunch of great stuff to talk about here on today's show. First up, the latest news and rumors surrounding the Pittsburgh Steelers. We got some really big injury updates, not only for the Steelers before this weekend's matchup against the Ravens, but also some big injury updates for the Ravens that you guys need to know about. That we'll talk about at the top of today's show. Then we'll get into our second segment today, kind of a fun one today, guys. Going to be talking about the guy and the quarterback that I think is the most likely target for Mike Tomlin and the Pittsburgh Steelers heading into the 2026 offseason. And a little bit of a spoiler here, guys, a little bit of a tease. I don't think you guys are going to like it, all right? But we're going to talk about what I think is the most likely scenario for the Steelers at quarterback next year. Then we'll get into the mailbag and your questions. If you have something that you want to ask me and you want to get on the show right next to me here on screen, you guys can get your question in. The real ones know what to do. Get down there in the live chat room and use hashtag Steelers along with your question in a comment, and that will put you in consideration to get on today's show for free. Or if you guys want to get on the show here and guarantee that your question gets on the show, you guys can super chat on today's show. It can be any dollar amount, $2, $5, $10, any super chat that you guys send in. We're going to put it up on screen. We're going to talk about that topic, and we'll make sure that question gets on the mailbag. So we greatly appreciate all of your guys' support. We already have over 100 people in this chat room right now. We already have a couple super chats already filing in, but I want to see who the real ones are. Down there in the comments section, type those me's in the chat if you are here to talk some Steelers football with us here today. We got Haley, we got Bernard, we got Danielle, we got Dedrick, we've got Czar Craig, we got Alex L, we got Tristan White, Nicholas, Black Magic, we've got my lovely fiance Cassie Voth is here. Everyone say hi to Cassie for me, please. We got Eugene Payne, we've got Gen05, we've got Elvis, we've got Nicholas, we got Ultimate Weirdo, we've got it's a weird format now, Ponzi, where they don't show the names, they show the handles now, and it's hard to read the handles. We got Blaisthal, we got Aaron, Tristan, Nicholas, Robert Kirkpatrick, as always, is here. Mr. Deadhead is here. How you guys doing this week, man? I'm doing good. I know the Steelers, lost last 2 games, and, we're kind of down bad right now. Lost 5 of the last 7. But, I think that the Ravens are kind of down bad as well after losing to the Bengals last week. Lamar Jackson isn't healthy, and, I'm excited to see Thielen play this weekend if he's going to be able to get going. He's wearing the dark visor, Ponzi. Say what you will about Adam Thielen as a player. He's got some swag, man. He's got a little bit of swag even at 35 years old. I'm excited to see this team play on Sunday. Shout out to Bernard Nixon with a $2 super chat. Says DK needs to step up too. And I think it'll be easier for DK to step up, Bernard, if we can have just somebody else at wide receiver step up. And if we can have the quarterback consistently hit that other receiving weapon. Because right now, defenses are kind of allowed to just double team DK Metcalf. And, I don't care who you are. I mean, unless you're like Jamar Chase or Justin Jefferson, you're like one of the truly elite wide receivers in the game today, which, by the way, DK is not one of those receivers. I still think he's a really good number 1 receiver. It's just there's maybe 3 or 4 guys on the entire planet that can consistently beat double coverage, and DK is just not one of those guys. So, they're bracketing him, doing all that stuff. If you can get that legit number 2 receiver in this offense, and the Steelers are hoping down the stretch that's going to be Adam Thielen, if you can put that, number 2 presence in there, that will open some things up for DK Metcalf, and I think we'll see more production out of him. But DK's not good enough to just do it on his own. He needs a partner in crime, and we'll see what the Steelers can do the rest of the season to try and get him that partner in crime, and we'll see what they do in the upcoming offseason to see if they can open him up a little bit more. But Bernard sent in another one here, says, who do you think is better, Aaron Rodgers or Brett Favre? All time, I would say Aaron Rodgers, same amount of Super Bowls. I think, his overall numbers are better, his efficiency is better, all that different stuff. So I would go with A-Rod over Favre, Bernard, but I think Favre is probably a top 10 QB all time. And then another question here. He says, do you think A-Rod is a diva like Skip Bayless says? Well, Skip Bayless doesn't know anything about football. If you asked him, what cover 6 versus cover 4 is, he wouldn't be able to tell you the difference between those two coverages, right? So, I would say don't get your football takes from people that don't understand football. That would be my advice to people out there. People that if they can't explain to you what's happening on the field, I wouldn't, trust their opinion on football. That's just me. $5 from Alex L says, if Rodgers wets the bed, should Will Howard play? I think Rodgers will get at least 2 more weeks. All right, I think you'll get this week. And even if they lose, they're still in the division, right? So we'll see, what happens here. But if they lose the next 2 games and the Ravens win the next 2 games and you get to a spot there where you're down 2 games or 3 games left to go, I would say the season's pretty much over at that point. And at that point, you would have lost 4 games in a row, 3 of those with Rodgers at quarterback. So I think at that point, why not throw Will Howard in towards the end of the season and see what he can do? Usually I'm not in favor of playing rookie quarterbacks in their rookie season, especially guys like Will Howard that come in from like really college-y, RPO, screen-heavy offenses like the Ohio State offense was last year. But with Will Howard, he's a 6th-round pick, so he's not going to get opportunities in future seasons necessarily. His opportunity to prove what he could do would be at the end of this season, right? So if the season's over, I don't think there's any real reason not to give Will Howard a chance at the end of the season, other than maybe letting Aaron Rodgers play out the rest of his season this year and his career, right? Not just benching him to end his NFL career. So I guess we'll see what happens there. But Bernard with another 2 says, say what you want about A-Rod, guys. Still has heart, 100%, man. Still loves the game of football, you can tell. Still wants to play, all this different stuff. And we'll talk about later in our second segment why, Rodgers coming back next year is still a possibility if he can turn it around. Like if he plays the way that he's played over the last month and a half or so the rest of the way, I don't think any team is even going to want to bring him in. Like he just hasn't been playing all that well. But if he can turn it around and have a good final month of the season and, the Steelers make the playoffs and, he plays okay in the playoff game, I could see, the Steelers bringing back Aaron Rodgers for another year and then drafting a young quarterback to kind of be alongside Will Howard as kind of the young options and, have those 2 quarterbacks maybe battle it out to be the next future franchise quarterback here in Pittsburgh. So that's what I'll say about that, Bernard. Thank you for the early Super Chats, guys. Again, the Super Chats automatically make the mailbag today, guys. So if you want to get a question for sure on the mailbag today, you guys can Super Chat. Otherwise, you can put your question in a message with hashtag Steelers in it for your chance to get on the mailbag for free. So let's step in to our first segment of the day, the latest news and rumors surrounding the Pittsburgh Steelers. Tonight on Steelers Talk, we have a big injury update in the battle for the AFC North Division crown as Lamar Jackson, the Ravens quarterback, has a new injury that could keep his status for Sunday's game against the Steelers in doubt. Big injury update here coming up at the top of today's show. Then we'll get into the latest Steelers injury updates here on Thursday. And then a really respected NFL draft analyst, Dane Brugler from The Athletic, mocked Ty Simpson, Alabama quarterback, to the Pittsburgh Steelers. I want to give my take on Simpson and the possibility of him falling to the Steelers in the teens later in today's show. So make sure you guys stick around for that. But tomorrow, Pittsburgh will release their final injury report before their Week 14 matchup versus the Baltimore Ravens. The Ravens will do the same, so we'll get all the updates for both teams. I'm going to be coming to you from my apartment tomorrow, giving you guys the latest scoop on that. So make sure you guys click that subscribe button if you haven't already for daily Steelers injury updates all throughout the rest of the 2025 NFL schedule. And we'll start here with the big injury news of the day, which is that Lamar Jackson did not practice today in Baltimore with what is listed now as a new ankle injury that was not listed before. He was practicing yesterday, and he usually speaks to the media after practices on Wednesday. He did not speak to the media after Wednesday's practice, indicating he might have been getting some treatment because of this new injury that he suffered in practice on Wednesday. And then subsequently, there's the word of the day there, Ponzi, did not practice here on Thursday, which will certainly put him in doubt out to play on Sunday versus the Pittsburgh Steelers. Now, here's what I'll say. I kind of doubt that in a game this important to the Baltimore Ravens season at home that Lamar Jackson is going to miss this game unless he absolutely has to, unless he literally can't move out there with this bum ankle. I think he's going to be out there in some capacity. But something that I will say about Lamar Jackson, guys, is that he's clearly not right, quote unquote, physically speaking. He had a big hamstring injury earlier on in the season. He had to kind of come back from that. And ever since he returned from that hamstring injury, he's had feet issues, he's had hamstring issues, ankle issues, and now it seems like that ankle issue that he was dealing with a couple weeks ago has re-aggravated in that practice on Wednesday, and he just doesn't move around the same way, man. He's taking a lot more sacks. I think his pressure to sack ratio this year is 25%. I think it's slightly below that. That is not like Lamar Jackson, guys, and with a pass rush as good as the Pittsburgh Steelers is, if Lamar's not getting that ball out fast, I think we could see a lot of sacks on Lamar Jackson. But let's be honest, guys, the key to victory for the Pittsburgh Steelers on the defensive side of the ball isn't even with Lamar Jackson. It's with Derrick Henry, the running back that ran all over the Pittsburgh Steelers in the final two games of the 2024 campaign where these two rivals collided. He averaged 170 yards per game in those two games. He averaged 7.5 yards per carry. His efficiency was off the charts in those two games, and it's going to be interesting to see here if Terrell Austin and the Pittsburgh Steelers come with a better plan against Derrick Henry, because I think if the Steelers make Lamar Jackson try to beat them and throw the ball 40-plus times in this game, I think the Steelers have a chance to win. But if you're allowing Derrick Henry to just run all over you the same way James Cook ran all over you last week at home, then I think it's going to be it doesn't even matter if Snoop Huntley is out there as the starting quarterback. I really think that the big matchup to watch this week is the Steelers defense versus Derrick Henry. If they can contain him, the Steelers can win. It doesn't matter who's playing quarterback. If they can't do that, I think that they lose no matter if it's Snoop Huntley or Lamar Jackson. But now we can take a look at some of the injury updates here on Thursday for your Pittsburgh Steelers. TJ Watt missed practice on Wednesday with what's called a foot injury. He was a full participant today. He's going to be just fine. Then Patrick Queen was a limited participant in practice today. He had to leave Sunday's game against the Bills with what's being listed as a glute injury, but he was a limited participant today. Then James Pierre, who's going through concussion protocol right now, he was a full participant today. That's a really good sign that he could be able to play on Sunday. Then Joey Porter Jr. was added to the practice report or to the injury report today with an elbow injury. He was limited. And then Kyle Duggar apparently suffered a hand injury in Wednesday's practice and did not practice today. So that is something to keep your eye on. If Duggar is unable to go, I would expect Jabril Peppers to play the other safety spot alongside Jalen Ramsey in this game. And then speaking of Jalen Ramsey, I think that he's going to play, but something to keep your eye on here is that he's had to take a second straight day off of practice for veteran rest. Now, maybe at this point in the season, his body's just really feeling it, needed an extra day. Maybe he's sick and just needed that extra day, whatever the case is with Jalen Ramsey. But the fact that you're missing 2 days, not just one for veteran rest, it's a little bit concerning there. So keep your eye on Jalen Ramsey. We'll have more on him tomorrow in our injury report video. But also, Patrick Queen said, on a podcast recently here, a crazy tidbit here about the last time the Pittsburgh Steelers played the Baltimore Ravens. Apparently, Patrick Queen and Minkah Fitzpatrick both got food poisoning to different degrees before the playoff game in Baltimore last year. This is what Patrick had to say about getting apparently food poisoned by a Baltimore restaurant last January. He says, I got food poisoning when we played in Baltimore in the playoff game last year. Minkah Fitzpatrick said his stomach was a little queasy, but it wasn't bad. He ate one of my things, so I was like, probably good that you didn't eat the whole thing like I did. They definitely got me. I used to eat there every single day when I was in Baltimore. Never got sick. Never. I go to the bathroom as soon as I sit down on the toilet, throwing up. And I think I was in the shower for 3 hours. Got 3 bags of IV before the game. Shaking. I'm freezing cold. I got 2 before the game, and then I got 1 at halftime. It was the worst experience ever. I remember being in the game and thinking and processing and knowing the play was coming and not being able to do nothing about it. So that certainly explains why Patrick really played one of his worst games of the season last year, maybe his worst game of the year in that playoff game, and honestly why Minkah wasn't playing all that well either, and Derrick Henry was just able to run shot all over the Pittsburgh Steelers defense, and hopefully now that he's feeling better and hopefully they don't go out to eat in Baltimore on Saturday night, hopefully he's going to be feeling better here to play a better football game for the Pittsburgh Steelers this week. That is, if he's good enough to go come Sunday afternoon. So what say you guys? Let me know down there in the comment section. If Lamar is out this week, will the Pittsburgh Steelers win versus the Baltimore Ravens? Give me a yes or a no down there in the comment section. This will be the pinned comment on today's show. So in just a second here, I'm going to tell you about our awesome sponsor here at Prize Picks. While I tell you about our sponsor today, simply give me a yes or a no down there in the comment section. With that, I have a word from our sponsor today here at Prize Picks, and it is the holiday season, guys. And in my opinion, this is the best time of the year for watching sports. Whether it's bowl games, basketball matchups, playoff pushes, it's all happening at once. And while all that action is going on, there is one place where it feels good to be right, and that is Prize Picks. Prize Picks is super simple to play. You just pick more than or less than on at least 2-player stat projections, and if you get your picks right, you could cash in. My favorite feature about Prize Picks is that how you play is up to you. If you want a little bit more flexibility, you can choose the flex play, where you can get paid even if one of your picks misses. And if you're feeling really strong about your lineup and want a bigger payout for winning, you can go for the power play. No matter how you play, though, Prize Picks is a great way to put your takes to the test, make some money. That is, if you know ball. So for Sunday's matchup against the Ravens here, I'm taking the less on passing yards for Aaron Rodgers, the more on rushing yards for Derrick Henry, and the more on rushing yards for Jaylen Warren. You guys can download the Prize Picks app today and use code CLNS. Get $50 in lineups after you play your first $5 lineup on the Prize Picks app today. That is code CLNS to get $50 in lineups after you play your first $5 lineup. Prize Picks, it's good to be right. So now I want to talk about this, man, because this is very interesting to me. Dane Brugler, the draft analyst for The Athletic, somebody that I really respect as an analyst, and he really knows what he's talking about, has mocked Alabama quarterback Ty Simpson to the Pittsburgh Steelers in his first mock draft of the 2026 draft schedule here. Now, just to show you how Brugler views Ty Simpson, he has him ranked as the number 1 quarterback on his big board right now, and he has him ranked as the number 2 overall prospect on his big board, only second to Arvell Reese, the linebacker from Ohio State. So Brugler really holds Simpson in high regard, just like I do. I think his film is about as good as anybody else's in the country in a somewhat pro-style offense with Ryan Grubb calling the plays there in Alabama. And Brugler has Simpson falling all the way to number 14. He has the Browns trading up to number 1 in his first mock draft for Dante Moore, and he has Simpson as number 1 quarterback and his number 2 overall prospect falling to the Steelers at 14. This is what Brugler has to say about the Crimson Tide quarterback. Simpson doesn't have the experience NFL teams desire at the quarterback position. However, if you've watched Simpson play this year, you've seen a passer with the processing and operation of a future NFL starter. How will NFL teams reconcile Simpson's lack of starts with his promising tape? If he declares, that will be the main question surrounding his draft outlook. But there is no denying the high-level quarterback play he's delivered. Another offseason in which the Steelers will find themselves at a quarterback crossroads, even if his inexperience is an understandable concern. Simpson processes quickly, negotiates pressure, and gives his receivers chances to make plays. Now, for me personally, guys, I would be thrilled if the Pittsburgh Steelers could get Ty Simpson in the NFL draft this year and not have to move up to be able to go get him. I think that would be an absolute steal because he might end up being the number 1 quarterback on my board this year. That's how impressive his tape has been for the Crimson Tide, in my opinion. You guys can take a look here at Ty Simpson. He turns 23 next season, so he is getting a little bit older, and if he goes back to Alabama, he's going to be 24 when he gets drafted, so just a little bit older there. I think youth is certainly not on his side in terms of elevating his draft stock if he comes back for another season here, but he does play in a pro-adjacent system under Ryan Grubb at Alabama. Lots of under center work, lots of throwing the ball over the middle of the field, not as many RPOs and screens as guys like Dante Moore and Fernando Mendoza running their respective offenses. So I think Ty Simpson is probably the most pro-ready quarterback in the NFL draft in terms of the guys that are going to be taken in round 1. If you need somebody to play right away and to play somewhat well right away, Simpson is your guy, in my opinion. He's got okay size. He's not the biggest guy in the world, but I think he's certainly big enough. He's got a big enough arm, certainly. He's a former 5 5-star athlete, guys, with a big arm. I think his pocket presence, he's had some really good moments in that regard as well. He's not a perfect prospect by any stretch of the imagination, but I think that he would be a great fit for the Pittsburgh Steelers, especially if Arthur Smith is still here as the OC, because he likes to go under center, and Art traditionally does like to throw over the middle of the field, even though the last several quarterbacks here in Pittsburgh have not been over the middle type throwers. But honestly, I would even be willing to trade up for Ty Simpson. If he falls to like 8 or 9 and the Steelers trade up inside the top 10 to go get him, I would still be very happy with that, because I think that he could have the potential certainly to be a franchise quarterback in this league. I think he'd be a good fit here in Pittsburgh. He's got a strong enough arm to play in the AFC North. I'd be thrilled for him to be the next franchise quarterback of the Pittsburgh Steelers, but that doesn't mean I wouldn't also be thrilled to get Fernando Mendoza or Dante Moore. I think both of those guys are also top 10 caliber quarterbacks. I do think that because they play in very college-y, RPO and screen-heavy offenses, that if they're going to play a lot of under center in Arthur Smith's offense, then they're probably going to need a year, all right? And if you do play them right away, you can't expect them to really have a high level of success, the same way that maybe you can expect Simpson to transition a little bit easier in his rookie year. But both of these guys have excellent arm talent. They definitely have the traits that you look for in a future franchise quarterback. In my opinion, it's just going to take a little bit longer for these two guys to transition from the college game to the pro game. So let me know what you guys think down there in the comments section. Who's QB1 in this year's draft class? Type TS if you agree with Brugler and think it's Ty Simpson. Type DM if you think Dante Moore is the number 1 quarterback in this class, or if you think Fernando Mendoza is the number 1 QB in this class. Type FM. Let me know what you guys are thinking down there in the comments section. For me, I still haven't gone into the entirety of my evaluation there, but right now I would probably say, at least for the Pittsburgh Steelers, I would have Ty Simpson at the top of my list. But let me know what you guys think down there in the comment section. That'll be it for today's slate of Steelers news and rumors. Thank you guys for stopping by today. We'll have more content for you guys on this channel tomorrow. So if you don't want to miss any of that, click that subscribe button, turn on those notifications. Until next time, guys, here we go, Steelers. All right, we've got some super chats to get to here. Dark City says signing Adam Thielen may be a good thing. I mean, this is what I've been saying. I said it right when they signed him, Ponzi, where I was like, Adam Thielen is not like this game-changing, needle-moving type of talent where he's going to be like a star player, but like he does bring something to this wide receiver room that this offense really didn't have, which was a big body route runner with good hands. All right, now Thielen's had some drops this year, so we'll see if those pop up in his time here in Pittsburgh. But throughout his career, including last season where he had over 600 yards in a season where he missed multiple weeks with injuries. I mean, I haven't checked the prorated numbers, but I think he was on pace to get like over 800 yards just last year in Carolina. All right, so this is still a good player in my opinion. Unfortunately for him, he just went to a situation in Minnesota where, Jordan Addison was suspended the first 3 weeks, and then when he got back in the lineup, Thielen just was benched, and he never got to play again. So I think Thielen is the type of guy where he's fresh. He hasn't really played a whole lot in Minnesota this year, so he's not worn down or anything like that. And if you're asking him, hey, just give us everything you got for these last 5 weeks, I think he's got those fresh legs to potentially make an impact as the number 2 receiver here in Pittsburgh. Is he a long-term option? No, he's retiring at the end of this season, but I think he adds an element to this offense that it was missing before, and hopefully that can open up some other opportunities for guys like Roman Wilson and DK Metcalf in this offense, as well as the run game. And that $5 from Junior L says, if we shut down Indy's run game, I have no doubt we can shut down the Ravens. Henry has been average, in my opinion. His ball security is questionable. He had issues with the fumbles early on in the year, but he's fixed them. I think they featured it on Thanksgiving last week, how he's not wearing the arm sleeve anymore. He's holding the ball differently, and he hasn't had a fumble since he made those changes. So we'll see what happens. The Steelers in the game that they beat the Ravens last year, they did a great job on Derrick Henry. I think he only had like 35 yards or something, and I think it was Nick Herbig forced a fumble on him. So I'm looking forward to seeing what the Steelers defense can do, because Terrell Austin was talking a big game at his press conference this week about how he loves the game plan this week against the Ravens and feels like it's way better than what they had last year. I mean, I'll believe it when I see it, because Henry absolutely annihilated this Steelers defense last year. Without Derek Harmon last week, the Steelers' run defense got absolutely ran through. You're not going to have Harmon again this week. I think all signs are still pointing to Henry having a really big game against the Steelers on Sunday, but I really, really hope, Junior, that I'm wrong on that. All right, now let's get into our next segment here, guys. Got over 200 people watching. Really do appreciate you guys watching today's edition of Steelers Talk Live, but we got another segment to get to here. One more reminder here, guys, that you guys can get your super chats and your comments on the mailbag today. All you have to do is go down there in the live chat room and use hashtag Steelers to get your question on the show for free. But the only way to guarantee your question gets on the show today is if you super chat. So I really greatly appreciate your guys' support. And with that, let's get into our second segment of the day. Let's talk what the Steelers are going to do at quarterback here in 2026. Steelers fans, I have been doing this job for quite a while now, and I think I have a pretty good feel on Mike Tomlin, Omar Khan, and this Pittsburgh Steelers organization, how they go about their business in the offseason. And to me, it is so obvious what the Pittsburgh Steelers are going to do at the quarterback position during the 2026 offseason. And today, I'm going to reveal the most likely target for the Pittsburgh Steelers at the quarterback position next year. And I just want to warn you guys, buckle up, because I don't think most fans are going to like what I think the Steelers are going to do. So make sure you guys stick around to see who that is. But today, what I'm going to do is I'm going to tell you what I would do at the quarterback position heading into next year. Okay, I'll tell you exactly what I think the Steelers should do, and then I'll go into what I think the Pittsburgh Steelers will actually do, which is the thing that I think most Steelers fans probably don't want to happen, but let's face it, the Steelers are probably going to do what this fan base doesn't want to do for yet another offseason. But predict it for me down there in the comments section. Who will be Pittsburgh's Week 1 starting quarterback next season? Predict it for me down there in the comments section. If you have a hunch as to who it's going to be, let me know what you guys think down there in the comments. Now let's start with what I would do, all right? If I'm the Pittsburgh Steelers and I'm in charge of running this team and trying to get the next quarterback of this football team, I would trade Mike Tomlin to a certain suitor. Now, obviously, Mike needs to agree to do that, but I think, the best case scenario here is that Mike gets traded to a team with a very early draft pick, and you use a first-round pick swap to move up into the top 3 of the NFL draft. Now, again, the challenge is Coach T has to agree to go. And, if you're drafting in the top 3 and you're drafting really highly, obviously you don't have a very good football team. So is Mike really going to want to go to one of those teams? That's going to be a big question mark. Does he want to leave Pittsburgh? I really do think, guys, that Mike Tomlin's destiny here with the Steelers heading into 2026 is going to come down to whether or not he wants to come back. If he wants to come back, I think the job is his. If he wants a fresh start and agrees to a fresh start, I think the most likely and the best trade partner that he could potentially go to is the New York Football Giants, who currently hold the number 2 overall pick in the 2026 NFL Draft. Now, the reason why I think that the Giants have appeal in terms of the head coaching position that's open is that they have a historic franchise, obviously, with multiple Super Bowl championships in a massive media market. They've got a young, promising quarterback in Jackson Dart on a rookie contract with cost control over the next several years. You got multiple high-end building blocks on the roster at really big positions here, like quarterback, wide receiver, number 1 running back, nose tackle, all 3 edge rusher spots, and then, of course, left tackle. You got really great pieces at all of those key positions. And then also, obviously, they're not in the AFC. So if the Steelers are going to trade Tomlin somewhere, I think they'd prefer a team in the NFC. The Giants certainly fit that bill. And then in terms of trade compensation, I think it works out for both teams. The Giants get their head coach in Mike Tomlin that they want. They get some stability in their building. And then the Steelers can trade up to the number 2 overall pick to take their franchise quarterback of the future. And now, whether they include that extra second-round pick or not, I don't really know. The Steelers might even take this deal just to take the trade up, because the opportunity to take a quarterback as high as number 2 without having to completely lose a bunch of games and get there, quote-unquote, naturally is a big-time opportunity that I don't know if the Steelers would be able to pass up. And with that pick at number 2, you can take your franchise quarterback. Now, obviously, there's going to be another team in front of you that likely likely takes a quarterback. Tennessee currently holds the number 1 pick. They would probably trade out of the number 1 pick, and somebody would take Fernando Mendoza, Dante Moore, or Ty Simpson, whoever rises to the top of the heap by the end of the draft season. But then the Steelers get their choice between 2 of those 3 guys, and I would absolutely be down for that if I am the Pittsburgh Steelers. Now, for me, guys, Ty Simpson, if you're looking for somebody to play right away and to be your day 1 starter, Simpson would be the most ready for that. He has a lot of experience playing under center this season, and he's been really proficient in the play-action passing game from under center. He rips the ball over the middle of the field, all that different stuff, which I think the Steelers need to do much more of. Very proficient throwing over the middle and into the intermediate levels of the field. He's got good pocket presence. He can extend plays as well. I think that if he comes out, there's a chance that he could be the number 1 quarterback taken, just because I think he is ready to play at the NFL level. Despite really his lack of college experience, he's shown a lot of NFL readiness in just his 1 season at Alabama. But I also really like Dante Moore as well. You know, he runs a very college-esque offense there in Oregon. But hey, Bo Nix was able to go from this offense to the NFL in Sean Payton's offense and make a playoff run in his first season in Denver. I think Dante Moore has more arm talent than Bo Nix does. I think his upside is a lot higher than Bo Nix, and I love his poise under pressure, both in terms of actual pressure in the pocket, but also in big-time moments. He stayed really poised in that whiteout game against Penn State this year, one of the toughest, if not the toughest environment in college football today. He handled it with so much grace and poise. That's the kind of pressure, poise under pressure that I want in the future franchise quarterback of the Pittsburgh Steelers. But I'm also really good with Fernando Mendoza as well. Reminds me a lot of Jared Goff, only a little bit more athletic. Maybe not the most elastic arm talent in the world, but he's a big body, rocket arm, can layer footballs to all 3 levels of the field. Would be thrilled to have him be a Pittsburgh Steeler as well. But no matter who you pick, if you're the Pittsburgh Steelers, you got to bring in a bridge veteran on the squad, and you at least have to have one on the team. In case that rookie is not ready to go, you want to have that veteran in there that you trust to start and win some games before you eventually go to the rookie in his first season in the league. Now, you could go with Mason Rudolph. This would be the Mark Caboli route, where you just keep Mason on his second year on his contract. You have to take on $3 million in dead cap if you release him next year. So you could always just go with Mason Rudolph as the bridge option. They like him. He's obviously played in this offense before. He's experienced, all that different stuff. This team has won games with him at quarterback. But with the way that he's played this year, do they really trust him to be a starting bridge option if that rookie is not ready to go? I'm not too sure about that. There's other bridge options that they could consider, guys that you probably don't consider long-term answers, but guys that you could give the reins to for a short period of time. Geno Smith was once an established franchise quarterback heading into this year. Heading into next year, that's not going to be as set in stone. He's going to have to prove himself yet again with probably a new team, because I don't think he's going to stay in Las Vegas. Jacoby Brissett has played some really good ball for Arizona this year. I think he's the ultimate bridge quarterback option. Doesn't throw interceptions, really good under center, has got a really good arm still. Brissett would certainly be somebody I would be interested in as a bridge option. Kirk Cousins has played a lot of ball. Gardner Minshew has started a lot of games in this league. So has Tyrod Taylor. Obviously the highlighter in the room would be the high draft pick, the rookie quarterback that you take, but these guys could hold down the fort until that rookie is ready. So take your pick for me down there in the comments section. Who do you want to take? If you have the choice between these 3 quarterbacks, who would you want to take to be the next franchise quarterback of the Pittsburgh Steelers? Type FN for Fernando Mendoza, DM for Dante Moore, or TS for Ty Simpson. This will be the pinned comment on today's show. And so in just a second here, I'm going to tell you about a great piece of Steelers apparel you can get for yourself or somebody you love this holiday season. While I tell you about that great opportunity, get your answer to that question down there in the comments section. And this is the piece of apparel I was talking about here, guys. The Salute to Service hoodie for the Pittsburgh Steelers. Got that American flag patch on the side. You got the Steelers logo on the chest. You guys can get a great price on it right now when you use our link, chatsports.com/PittSalute25. Part of the proceeds go back to us here at Steelers Talk. So we get, part of that money to help us pay for new equipment and new graphics and all the stuff that we're currently doing right now here at Chat Sports to keep this content free for you guys. So if you want this this sweatshirt for yourself or somebody that you love, it's a great gift to anybody in your life that's a Steelers fan. You can go chatsports.com/pitsalute25 to get this hoodie in your collection today. Now, you might be saying at home, but Jack, why not just go with Will Howard as the starting quarterback of the Pittsburgh Steelers next year? Well, I think there's probably two reasons. The first reason is that Howard was not, all right, no matter how much John Gruden slurps him, all right, he was not a high-end draft prospect last year, all right? Like, at best, you know, I know some people thought he was like a day 2 type of guy. Really, most people thought he was more of an early day 3 prospect. Now, I'm glad the Steelers got him where they got him. I think it was an absolute steal to take a dart throw on, you know, quarterback with some starter-level traits in the 6th round, and I love Will as a person. He's got great football character, hard worker. He played his best football when it mattered most at Ohio State there in the college football playoff. He led 2 different teams to 2 different conference championships in college. He's got great size. He's a plus rusher. He's got some power to him with his rushing as well, which is another plus. He's got some good arm strength, can rip the ball down the field. He's got clean upper body mechanics. I think he's pretty good on his first read. He doesn't make a lot of mistakes on that first read. At least he didn't in college. But there are certainly cons, which, you know, led to him getting a day 3 grade from me, which is accuracy, especially to the short and intermediate levels of the field, was not super consistent. He threw a lot of floaters on his film at Ohio State, especially down the field. And part of the reason for that, in my opinion, is that he does have smaller hands, so sometimes he doesn't grip the football the way that you want him to, especially in colder environments. He also plays with a narrower base, which leads to some of those inaccuracies as well. I also don't think that he's the best in terms of getting off of his first read and going, you know, full field progressions. I haven't really seen him do that a whole lot. And then pressure management. He doesn't have the best pocket presence either. So there's a lot of things on there that are really tough to teach in that con section that I think limits, you know, his total upside. I think that he could be like a Derek Carr level starter, you know, if his upside hits. But, like, is that enough upside for the Steelers to completely pass on a first-round quarterback if they have an opportunity to get somebody like a Ty Simpson or Fernando Mendoza or Dante Moore? For me personally, I don't think that would be the case. And, you know, we haven't seen Will Howard this year. We didn't even see him play in the preseason. So if we don't see him for the rest of this year, how can the Pittsburgh Steelers really trust him to take the keys of this organization and this offense and expect him to have a high level of success? I mean, we just saw what happened to J.J. McCarthy this year in Minnesota. He was a top 10 draft pick, and they went that route, and their season is completely trashed, all right? They completely wasted an entire season because they failed to bring back Sam Darnold or Daniel Jones and went with the rookie or, you know, the young player instead. And, you know, are we really suggesting the Steelers do the same thing, only this time with a 6th round draft pick? I personally don't think that's the best way to go about it, guys, as much as I like Will. And I honestly think at this point, Will's best chance to be the starting quarterback of the Pittsburgh Steelers next year is if Aaron Rodgers just straight up goes to, you know, management and says, you do not want to draft a quarterback next year. This guy is the real deal. You have to start Will Howard. I think Mike Tomlin and Omar Khan would respect Aaron Rodgers' decision on that and his opinion on that. So if Rodgers goes to management and says, you got to start this guy, I think that's probably Will Howard's best chance of being named or at least given an opportunity to be the Steelers starting quarterback in 2026. And if you give Will a chance, you have to bring in legit veteran competition, in my opinion. This was the big problem with the J.J. McCarthy thing this year, right? They brought it, you know, they said no thank you to Sam Darnold and Daniel Jones, and they just anointed J.J. McCarthy as their starter without, you know, knowing for sure that he really earned it. And, you know, you saw the results. They didn't have anybody in that room, Brosmer, Wentz, anybody else that was capable of taking up that mantle and saving the Vikings season. So there's a lot of guys that you could theoretically bring in. You could bring in older guys that still have you know, a little something to prove in Geno Smith, Kirk Cousins, you know, or you could go with a rehabilitation project as a younger player. Mac Jones has looked really good in San Francisco this year, but also Jacoby Brissett's another older example there that you could have being brought in as competition. But then like Anthony Richardson, Malik Willis, Justin Fields, Will Levis, a lot of these very talented early draft pick type of guys with a lot of arm talent, a lot of athleticism. We've seen guys like Sam Darnold and Baker Mayfield and Jared Goff and all these kind of castaway type of former first-round picks turn around their careers in new places. You know, if you're going to go with Will Howard and give him a chance, you have to also give somebody else a chance, in my opinion, and have those guys compete in training camp next year. All these guys, I think, would be on the table potentially. But all that being said, all right, I don't think the Pittsburgh Steelers are going to do either of these things that we've talked about today. We've talked about trading Mike Tomlin into the top 3 to take Fernando Mendoza, Dante Moore, Ty Simpson. That's the route that I would go. And we've talked about the idea of going with Will Howard, which I don't think the Steelers are going to go down. I think I know Mike Tomlin, and I think I know Omar Khan. And let's be completely honest with each other here, guys. Tomlin is likely going to be back next year. And like I said earlier in the show, I think Tomlin's destiny here in Pittsburgh will be determined by him. I don't think the Steelers will fire him. And if Tomlin wants to get a fresh start elsewhere and is open to a trade, I think the Steelers would probably trade him, and they'd be open to that. But I don't think Tomlin wants to leave. I think he wants to come back for at least one more season here in Pittsburgh to finish out Cam Hayward's career here in Pittsburgh. And if that happens, I think they're going to go down the veteran quarterback route again. All right. And the reason why I say that is that teams don't win Super Bowls with rookie quarterbacks, all right? And if Cam Hayward only has one more year of his career, then, if you're going to go with somebody like Ty Simpson, Dante Moore, Fernando Mendoza, you might as well just trade Cam Hayward away for another draft pick because you're not going to win a Super Bowl with any of those quarterbacks. Let's just be completely honest with that. But from Mike Tomlin and Omar Khan's perspective, hey, if there's a good veteran quarterback on the market, let's go get him so that we can have a chance to go win a Super Bowl in Cam Hayward's final year of his career. And whether we agree with that thinking or not, if Tomlin is back next year and Cam Hayward is back next year, that's almost guaranteed to be their thinking in the offseason. And if that's the case, the veteran quarterback that is the most likely to come to Pittsburgh is Kyler Murray. All right, and it's going to come via trade. And I know, all right, I can already see you guys in the comment section. I'm with you on this. I don't necessarily want Kyler Murray either, but he kind of fits what Mike Tomlin would want in a franchise quarterback. So let's walk you guys through this. He's 29 years old, so he's played a lot of time in the National Football League, but if he can find a career renaissance here in Pittsburgh, he could play for another decade or so here in the Steel City if he works out. He's a former number 1 overall pick. He's got a ton of talent, man. Like his ability to extend plays, make plays out of structure, his arm talent, his rushing ability is some of the best out of any quarterback in the league still at 29 years old. But obviously he's tiny. Obviously 5'10", 207 is not the biggest guy in the world. And, he is likely to be traded away from the Arizona Cardinals this offseason. And the reasons why I think Tomlin in particular would love Kyler is not only because of his pedigree as a former number 1 overall pick, but he doesn't throw over the middle of the field, right? Plain simply because he can't see over there. So he likes to throw outside the numbers, likes to stay in that area. And we know Aaron Rodgers, Russell Wilson, Justin Fields, Kenny Pickett, all these guys, what do they have in common? They don't like to throw in the middle of the field. So in that regard, Kyler is the perfect Mike Tomlin quarterback because he literally can't see over the middle of the field. So that's why I think Tomlin will love him. Also, dynamic rusher of the football. We know how much Tomlin cherishes the quarterback run game. It's why he liked Justin Fields as much as he liked him. And Kyler is still one of the more slippery, agile, and honestly fast quarterbacks in the National Football League today, even despite an ACL injury a couple years ago. And he has 7 years of starting experience. So if you're trying to one and done this thing and try and get Cam Hayward a Super Bowl, and you're not bringing back Aaron Rodgers, the guy that's got the most experience playing in the league probably would be Kyler Murray at that point in time. Now, if you trade for Kyler, guys, and I think it'd probably cost around a second-round pick to get him in the building or so, these would be the cap hits left on his contract that the Steelers would be on the hook for. $42.5 million in 2026, $36.3 million in 2027. That one's not so bad. And then in 2028, the Steelers would have a club option, so they could decide whether or not to pick up that option in 2028 for $46.3 million. But in the current landscape of quarterback contracts, guys, this really isn't that bad. And it's actually somewhat affordable. So if you can get Kyler Murray and he plays really well, this would actually be a bargain for the Pittsburgh Steelers. But personally, I've said this before, I'll say it again, I want to make it abundantly clear. This is not the road that I would necessarily go down, all right? Kyler's a fun player to watch, and I'd be intrigued by it for sure if the Steelers did it, but it's not the road that I would go down. I would rather trade Cam Hayward away to a competitor and bring in a rookie quarterback to start building the future of the Pittsburgh Steelers. However, you got to admit, guys, this has Steelers written all over it, all right? You're not going to have to give up a first-round pick for him. He's a former number 1 overall pick. He's got a ton of rushing ability and arm talent. and the Call of Duty jokes would be going crazy, and all this different stuff. But I think that he fits Mike Tomlin and the Steelers to a T. And at this point, where I sit here today, guys, I think Kyler Murray is probably the most likely option to be the starting quarterback of the Pittsburgh Steelers in 2026. So what say you guys? Let me know down there in the comment section. Would you be happy with Kyler Murray as QB1 of the Pittsburgh Steelers next season? Simply give me a yes or a no down there in the comment section. For me, I would definitely have my doubts about it. But let me know what you guys think down there in the comments section. Now, I do want to finish up today's show by discussing another possibility here, which is that Aaron Rodgers could still theoretically return to the Steelers next year. Now, I think in order for this to happen, he's going to have a hell of a month of December and January. I think the Steelers will probably have to make the playoffs, and Rodgers will have to play pretty darn well during that playoff stretch run in order for the Steelers to even want him back. But, we were discussing earlier this season when he was playing at like a borderline top 10 level that the Steelers should bring him back for another season. And then, if that's the case, I think that's kind of the perfect setup for like a rookie quarterback, right? Because if you're bringing in Rodgers on another one-year deal, that'd be the perfect setup for a Fernando Mendoza or a Dante Moore or Ty Simpson to walk into, sit behind Rodgers for a year. And then, when Rodgers eventually retires, you can pass the torch and you don't have to force that rookie to make that crazy transition from college to pro in one season. So I have to acknowledge that that's still a possibility at this point. Rodgers will have to play a lot better down the stretch than he has over the last 6 weeks or so if it's going to happen, but it's still a possibility at this point in time. All right, that'll be it for today's edition of Steelers Talk by Chat Sports. I appreciate you guys sticking with me here till the very end. I'll see you guys next time, and until then, here we go, Steelers. All right, man, so we're going to be getting into the mailbag here in just a second. And we got some. Let's just do the super chats that have come in on the mailbag. Yeah, we don't have to answer those questions twice. Okay, so we're just going to get into it right now, guys. It's already 6:45, 6:45 on the East Coast. So I'm not going to waste any more of your time here, guys. Let's get into this week's Steelers Talk mailbag coming at you guys right now. It's my favorite segment of the week. It is the mailbag here on Steelers Talk, here before the Pittsburgh Steelers take on the Baltimore Ravens here in Week 14. I know you guys are going to have some very interesting questions because there's a lot of stuff that happened in Steelers Nation this week. But before we get into the questions today, make sure you guys click that subscribe button to join the most interactive Steelers fan community anywhere here on YouTube. We pride ourselves in giving you guys a voice and a personality on this channel. We go live 3 times a week, Tuesdays, Thursdays, and then game days for the Pittsburgh Steelers, where we interact with the chat and we talk ball and we talk about the Pittsburgh Steelers, the events of that week, and then also we do these mailbags where you guys can get your questions on the show. We've got interactive community posts on the channel every single day. So if you want a place to come talk Steelers football with your fellow Steelers fans that bleed black and gold, this is the place for you. Click that subscribe button if you haven't already to join the over 100,000 Yinzers already a part of our family. All right, so we'll start here with Lyndon Hubbard. Beautiful picture there. $10. Says, if Rodgers doesn't come back next year, what do you think about waiting until 2027 to draft a QB since there's more pro-ready talent and giving Will Howard a chance next year while we are waiting? Well, if Will Howard stinks, Lyndon, then you're wasting the final season of Cam Hayward's career. And I think Cam would be pissed off, frankly, if you did that. Now, I do think that if they give Will Howard a legitimate chance to start next year, they're not just going to hand him the job, especially if he doesn't play this year. Like, if you don't see Will Howard play in a game this year, they're not just going to give him the keys to the castle, all right? They're going to make him earn it, and they're going to bring in a different quarterback next year to compete with him, whether that's a Jacoby Brissett or a Mac Jones or a Geno Smith or somebody of that kind to come in and compete for the starting job with Will Howard. That's a possibility, and if Will Howard wins the job out of camp outright, great. He's the starting quarterback. We'll see how he does in 2026. And, I'm open to everything, and I'm attached to nothing, to steal a line from Aaron Rodgers here, Lyndon. There's a lot of good players in the NFL draft next year. And if you feel good about your quarterback room and you feel like you can get a really good receiver to pair with DK Metcalf, for example, I would be very open to that. There's a lot of stuff that is going to happen between now and the draft, so very open to that. But I also think there's some really good pro good talent and future franchise quarterbacks in this year's draft as well, particularly Fernando Mendoza, Dante Moore, and Ty Simpson out of Alabama. If you could get any one of those three, I'd be absolutely thrilled. Alex L. with A5 says, if Rodgers wets the bed, should Will Howard play? I think Rodgers will get at least 2 to 3 more weeks. But if the Steelers keep losing over this next 2 to 3 game stretch and the season is effectively over, when that point comes, I do think that the Steelers will move on to Will Howard at the end of the season. But until that point comes, I don't think Rodgers gets taken out of the starting lineup. Frankly, even if the season is over, they might still play Rodgers so that he can play out the final games of his career and put a bow on his illustrious NFL career. But if the Steelers lose 2 or 3 more games in a row, Alex, I would be open to starting Will Howard just to see what we have in him, see if there's anything there. And if there's not, just draft a quarterback next year early. And, if there is, maybe you bring in a different veteran to compete with him next year. Maybe that's the plan. So, we'll see what happens over the next few weeks, Alex. But until the playoff hopes are officially dead, Rodgers will be at quarterback. Yinzer fan 2010 says, should the Steelers bring in Chip Kelly next year to work with Will Howard in the Steelers offense? I think Chip Kelly, his offense with the Raiders this year was a complete mess. It's been really well reported how much of a disaster it was in Las Vegas offensively this year, and I kind of felt bad for Geno Smith, to be completely honest with you, when those reports came out. And something that gives me a little bit of hope that Geno and an actual, good organization can maybe, have another career renaissance somewhere else because he still has a lot of arm talent. But Kelly is a big no for me, man. I think he's a college coordinator. What they were doing this year schematically in Las Vegas, it just didn't work. And, his transition from the Ohio State offense in college to the pro game, it was an absolute disaster. So, even if you do go with Will Howard next year, bringing in Chip Kelly, I don't think is a good idea personally. So what say you guys? Should Pittsburgh make Will Howard their QB1 next season? Give me a yes or a no down there in the comment section for today's pinned question. In just a second here, YouTube's going to throw you an ad break here. And when that happens, take advantage of that time by simply giving me a yes or a no down there in the comments. Bernard Nixon with a 2 says DK needs to step up too. 100%. There's been some drops this year that he should have had, all that different stuff. He needs to do a better job separating. But I will say, to give DK a little bit of grace here, he's been double-teamed a lot, and it's tough to throw it to somebody that gets double-teamed, especially if they're not one of the 3 to 5 elite quarter or wide receivers that can beat double coverage. And DK, he's really good at what he does, but he's not, a Jamar Chase or a Justin Jefferson or a Jackson Smith-Njigba that can beat double teams consistently. So he needs that partner in crime. He needs that wide receiver to that route runner to take some of that safety attention away from DK. And when that happens, I think DK can be opened up to, be more productive than he's been this season. Unfortunately, the Steelers have failed to this point to establish that number 2 receiver on the other side of him. And the results have been the results. $2 from Dark City talking about a potential wide receiver 2 option the rest of the way here. Signing Adam Thielen may be a good thing. I said it when the Steelers signed him, man. I don't think it's some crazy game-changing, needle-moving move, but there's a couple reasons why I'm optimistic. Number one, he brings something to this offense that the Steelers didn't have before. All right, they had DK Metcalf, who's fast, big, great after the catch, but he's not really a route runner, and he's not really a 50-50 contested ball winner, at least not a consistent one. And then you had a bunch of smaller receivers that can run some routes. They can make some catches. All that different stuff, but, they can't be physical down the field. And then they have Ben Skoranek, who's not much of a receiver. He's more of a blocker. What the Steelers were missing was that big body route runner type that can make tough catches, and Thielen has been that throughout his career, and he's got fresh legs because he hasn't really played all that much in Minnesota this year. So I know he's 35. He's at he's at his wit's end in his career. It's his final year in the league, but he's got 5 weeks left. He's going to give us everything that he's got, and he's going to be wearing that dark visor as well. So he's got a little bit of swag mailbag to him as well, which I like. So I'm excited to see what Thielen can do. We'll see if he ends up playing on Sunday, if he can get ramped up in time. But it sounds like he's cramming. It sounds like they're trying to get him on the field this week. And when he does, I'm going to be excited to see him play. But before we get into the rest of the questions here on the Steelers Talk mailbag here this week, let's have a word from our sponsor here at Prize Picks. And it is the holiday season. And in my opinion, guys, this is the best time of the year to watch sports. Bowl games, basketball matchups, playoff pushes. It's all happening at once. And while all that action is going on during the holiday season, there's one place where it feels so good to be right, and that is Prize Picks. Prize Picks is super simple to play. Just pick more than or less than on at least 2 player stat projections, and if you get your picks right, you could cash in. My favorite feature about Prize Picks is how you play is up to you. If you want a little bit more flexibility, you can choose the flex play where you can get paid even if one of your picks misses. And if you're feeling really good about a particular lineup and want a bigger payout for it, you can go for the power play. But no matter how you play, Prize Picks is a great way to put your takes to the test and make some money. That is, if you know ball. Ponzi and I are going to be trying to make some money with our friends at Prize Picks on Sunday, taking the less on passing yards for Aaron Rodgers, the more on rushing yards for Derrick Henry, and the more on rushing yards for Jaylen Warren. So download the Prize Picks app today and use code CLNS to get $50 in lineups instantly after you play your first $5 lineup. That's code CLNS to get $50 in lineups after you play your first $5 lineup. Prize Picks, it's good to be right. Got one here from Junior L. Says, if we shut down Indy's run game, I have no doubt we can shut down the Ravens' Henry. He's been average, in my opinion. His ball security's been questionable. Listen, man, part of my frustration with this Steelers defense this year is that you're right. They did shut down Indianapolis' run game. They did shut down Josh Jacobs earlier this year. They shut down the Patriots' run game in the 3rd week of the season. But they've also given up 144 yards to James Cook, over 100 yards to Chase Brown, nearly twice. They've given up over 100 to Breece Hall. They've given up over 100 to Kenneth Walker. I mean, there's just been too much inconsistency there, Junior L. And my biggest concern is that Derek Harmon is out again this week, and in every single game Harmon's been out, they've given up at least 100 yards rushing. There's been a 100-plus yard rusher in all 3 of those games, and the Steelers in those 3 games would be dead last in the National Football League this year in yards allowed on the ground. It's like 180-plus rush yards per game. And which would be dead last by like 25 yards. And Derrick Henry, as we know, completely ran over this Steelers offense or defense last year in the final 2 games. And honestly, like last week's game against James Cook really reminded me a lot of that game. Henry bouncing those perimeter runs on zone week. I mean, the Steelers got to have a better game plan this week, or it's going to be pretty rough for the Pittsburgh Steelers defense. Really hoping that they can have one of their better weeks of the year this week, though. Fire Mike Tomlin here says Isaiah Hodgins is actually playing pretty well with the Giants right now. Should Pittsburgh regret not elevating him? Honestly, I kind of think so. Hodgins has looked pretty darn good as a route runner, making some tough catches for the Giants over the last few weeks. And if you would have elevated him earlier in the year, I kind of feel like you could have had that bigger body route runner, hands type of guy without having to go get Adam Thielen this late into the season. And maybe having Hodgins in there earlier would have opened up some more things for the Steelers passing attack. Obviously, we'll never know. Obviously, the Steelers coaching staff had their reasons for not elevating Hodgins, but it's tough to not have those thoughts when he's going to New York, and he's playing pretty decent football right now. So the fact that he was in our building and we let him go and he's doing some good things in New York kind of stings. But I'm kind of past that now, and now I'm looking forward to seeing what Adam Thielen can do with this team moving forward. So make sure you guys click that thumbs up icon if you haven't already. If you are a real one, the real ones know clicking that thumbs up icon is the fastest and easiest way to help out our channel, and it's kind of the cycle of life on YouTube, guys. If you like the show, it's going to get the YouTube algorithm to promote our show on their recommended pages, which is going to get more eyeballs on the channel. The more eyeballs, the more people that subscribe. The more people that subscribe, the more people watch. The more people watch, the more people like the show, and so on and so on and so on. So clicking that thumbs up icon really helps us out, guys. If you don't have time to do anything else today, just make sure you click that thumbs up icon. We greatly appreciate you. $2 from Steel Gamer says, what's going on with Dante Kent? It sounds like he suffered an injury in his first practice back on the practice field, kind of similar to the Corey Trice Jr. situation, where for a second practice back for Corey Trice, he re-injures whatever he was dealing with there, and then Dante Kent apparently got an ankle injury in yesterday's practice. So did not practice today. His 21-day practice window is open, so time's ticking to add him to the active roster. We'll see how serious this injury is. But, it's looking like Dante might be losing his entire rookie season to injury if this is anything of significance. $5 from Black Wolf says, at this point, do we really trust anything Taylor Lawson as our DC at all anymore? I'm over this dude 1,000%. Will he be here next season? Well, I believe his contract expires at the end of this season. So if the defense turns it around at the end of the season and they make the playoffs, maybe they win a playoff game, certainly I think Austin would be in consideration to come back next year. But if the season flames out and let's say, they finish 8-9, they miss the playoffs, etc., I think that he will be let go. All right. And I think they'll bring in a new DC, but honestly, whoever they bring in, I don't even think it's going to matter that much. Maybe the personnel management might get a little bit better in game, but in terms of the schematics, Mike Tomlin comes up with game plans every single week, man. So, the philosophy on defense here in Pittsburgh will not change until Mike Tomlin is no longer the head coach of the Pittsburgh Steelers. Big Ben fan 7 here says, saw Deshaun Watson is back at practice now for the Browns. Any chance he plays versus the Steelers in Week 17? Would you rather play him or Shedeur? This is a good question here, man. Deshaun is, he is back at practice. Now, who knows how healthy he is? And for the Browns, there's no reason not to open up his practice window. We're in the final home stretch of the season right now. So, if he's not going to be ready by the end of that 21-day practice window, you might as well just shut him down for the rest of the year. But I would say there's maybe somewhat of a chance that he could play in Week 17. He's trying to maybe, kind of like Will Howard at the end of the season, he might be trying to have a little bit of a tryout for teams to say, hey, I'm still here and I can still play. Take a chance on me next year. So I think that's kind of what he's kind of working for. And if Shedeur, is not playing well before that Week 17 matchup, it's possible that they could play Deshaun Watson. In terms of who I would rather play, either one. I don't care, man. I'm not scared of either one of these cats. Shedeur sucks. I'm sorry he does. And then Deshaun Watson, he's been the worst quarterback in the league for multiple seasons on end, and he hasn't even played a game this year. So I think, honestly, the Steelers are in good shape against either one of those quarterbacks, but that's just the way I feel about it. But pick your opponent for me down there in the comment section. Would you rather play Shedeur Sanders or Deshaun Watson? Type DW for Deshaun or SS for Shedeur Sanders. Let me know what you guys think down there in the comment section. And that'll be it for this week's mailbag here on Steelers Talk. Great questions this week, guys. We'll be back later in the week here to talk more about the Pittsburgh Steelers, and we will have our live watch party for Steelers versus Ravens Sunday afternoon starting at 12 p.m. Eastern Time. It is a big one for the black and gold. You're not going to want to miss it, so make sure you click that subscribe button, turn on those notifications. Until next time, guys, here we go, Steelers. All right, Ponzi, let's finish up the day here talking some football. In about an hour or so, we're going to be getting Cowboys-Lions on Thursday Night Football.
Fun one.
What's that?
It's going to be a very fun one.
Fun one because there's a lot at stake for the Cowboys, right? Because if they lose, their season is what? Effectively over? Is that what we could call it?
I think it's actually huge for both teams. I think if the Lions lose tonight, it's like a 20% chance because they would be fighting with the Cowboys.
All right, I'm going to look up the
It's close. I think it's like 20 or 30. I know Cowboys is like 14.
I'm going to look this up here, what the chances are. So for the Lions, if they win tonight, so right now they're at a 30% chance to make the playoffs. That's crazy to me, man. Yep. I knew that they were going to take a step back this year because the
tiebreaker.
Yeah, they lose the tiebreakers for a lot of them. If they win today, they still don't even have a 50% chance of making the playoffs. If they lose tonight, they go all the way down to 12%. All right?
Yeah.
So I mean, this really feels like a must-win game for both teams. And then for the Cowboys here, they're sitting at a 23% chance to make the playoffs, and they go down to just 9% if they lose.
Yeah. So, I feel like, there's a lot of things going for both teams going into this game. Obviously, Amon-Ra, now it's literally as we were going the last segment, that he will play tonight. Jadeveon Clowney is going to be out.
Well, I mean, it's a big one.
Yeah, it's huge.
It's a big one, man.
It's a bona fide playoff game.
Yeah. I mean, this is the kind of stuff that I love in the NFL season. We're starting to get to this final, kind of stretch. Teams are trying to stay alive. And certain teams' hopes are going to start getting dashed here over the next several weeks. So Big game tonight. Who are you taking here, Ponzi? I'm going to go with the Dallas Cowboys, man. They're red hot. Pickens is playing great. Their defense is playing so much better, and Dak is playing great football. They're feeling the wave right now. I think Detroit at home feels the pressure. I think Dallas comes away with the win.
Yeah, I think, the Cowboys will win tonight. I think that they're playing really inspired football, and obviously you kind of saw a little glimpse of it on Hard Knocks. But, I mean, Brian Schottenheimer has these guys rallying. I think that, the Lions are suffering a little bit in their cornerback department. George Pickens and CeeDee Lamb should go off tonight. Yeah,
I'm right there with you, pal. Now let's talk about the matchup we've been waiting for all season, man. We've been waiting for these two games, all season. This 5-game stretch, and it's kind of weird to think of it this way because the Steelers have been so disappointing to watch, especially over the last 7 weeks. But it doesn't matter if you're 10-6. Or if you have 10 wins or if you have 6 wins at this juncture, you're tied at the top of the division, all right? And you've got everything left in front of you. It's a new season, okay? Because you're not going to be getting a wild card spot. We know that, all right? You got a less than 1% chance of making the playoffs via a wild card, okay? But you still have a pretty decent chance of winning the division, all right? You got 5 games, 2 of them against Baltimore. It doesn't matter if if both teams had 9 wins, 10 wins, whatever. It's still the same situation as if you had all those wins. So at the end of the day, the Steelers have certainly gotten some luck this year to be able to be tied at this point. Lamar's hamstring injury, losing to Cincinnati last week, all that different stuff. But everything is still in front of this team, Ponzi. And if they win this game on the road and take advantage of Lamar Jackson being injured and not he'll probably play, but probably not play at 100%. If you can stop Derrick Henry and you can get a big-time win here, the chances of the Steelers winning the division, getting a home playoff game, go up by quite a bit.
And I think, the main thing for the Steelers is to stop Derrick Henry. I mean, I feel like Derrick Henry has run all over them in the past 2 matchups. I feel like if they could stop Derrick Henry, their offense becomes a little bit one-dimensional. And, Lamar's not feeling 100%. I feel like if you force him to make plays with his, arm, because he's not going to be using his legs a lot because of those injuries, I feel like, that will play into the Steelers' game plan, and they could come out with a win.
If Lamar has to throw the ball more than 35 times, I think the Steelers win.
Yeah, I think there's a stat about that.
I'm sure there is. But, the Ravens want to beat the Steelers on the ground. Okay, so that has to be the number one priority, is to stop the Baltimore Ravens run game. And plain and simply, if Lamar Jackson is being tasked with winning this football game for the Ravens, he's never, ever, ever beaten the Pittsburgh Steelers in a game like that. Every single time, the Ravens have asked him to win the game for them, they've lost the game against the Steelers. So that is going to be the way that the Steelers beat the Ravens this weekend. And obviously on offense, you got to get something going offensively, okay? You got to get something going in the passing game, down the field, all right? I don't know if that's getting Adam Thielen on an intermediate corner route or, using him on screens or slants or, using him in that way. Or even if Adam plays at all this week, if he even gets ramped up in time. But you got to find a way to start hitting some of these downfield shots so that this Ravens defense, which is really good, is forced to respect you. And, we haven't seen a defense respect the Pittsburgh Steelers in that way in quite a while because the Steelers have not been able to effectively make defenses pay for playing aggressively. They got to do that this week. They got to run the football effectively as well. They got to protect the football. They got to have one of their better games offensively if they want to win this ball game on the road.
And I really think that, like Big Ben said about it, having Rodgers call plays a little bit, maybe that will help out.
Go spread a little bit, maybe.
Yeah, maybe that will help out Adam Thielen a little bit.
And, if Rodgers is not able to go under center, if that's still too painful for him, then I think the way you maybe go about it is you play more spread.
Yeah.
And you run in between the tackles from that spread formation as your run game, and then you let Rodgers pick apart the defense with his brain. Because when you spread things out, the defense has to declare what they're in. All right, and it's harder to disguise when you're
Rodgers can see the field
when you spread things out, and Rodgers can see the field better. So maybe that's the way that you need to do things, and have kind of like an audible heavy offense this week, and have Rodgers kind of manning the ship. And play a little bit more tempo, maybe. You just got to try different things out, man. And I know in such a big game like this, it's not ideal to be experimenting with things on offense, but if things aren't working, you have to try different things out. And it's going to be interesting to see what the game plan looks like this week. As Rodgers said in his post-game press conference on Sunday, though, they got to have their best Monday to Saturday of the entire season because this game is as important as they come. This week's game and then the season finale are going to decide the division. Plain and simply, guys. All right. So
if you can
win
games,
and if you win these 2 games, by the way, if you sweep the Ravens, which I mean is possible, if you sweep the Ravens this year, you win the division.
Yeah.
Period.
I mean, what you have Dolphins, Browns.
Mm-hmm. You're going to win at least one of those games.
Yeah.
And if you sweep the Ravens, they can't win 3 games.
Ravens, everything looks better.
Right.
I know Steelers fans are all doom and gloom right now. They're all really in the dumps. But these last weeks, they're everything. We still have a shot.
By the way, guys, you know who else is doom and gloom right now? The Baltimore Ravens fans.
Exactly.
All right. Joey Peterson, Trader Joey's studio is right next to my desk here at Chat Sports. I listen to Ravens Rundown every day against my will. Okay, Joey's great, but listen, man, I don't want to hear about Baltimore
Trader
Ravens
Joey.
shit. But listen, man, I hear what their fan base is talking about. They're talking about firing their head coach, John Harbaugh.
They're talking about clearing ship too.
They're talking about their offense sucking. They're talking about Derrick Henry not being good anymore. They're talking about their defense not living up to expectations. All right, so if we're down in the dumps right now, obviously, but they just lost to the Cincinnati Bengals by multiple scores at home. All right, in front of a national audience. They're not feeling too good about themselves either. We're both 6-6. All right, so like I said, it doesn't matter if you're tied at 6-6 or tied at 9 wins or 10 wins at this point in the season. It's the same deal. All right, it's a new season. It's a 5-week season. We'll just have to see how the Steelers try and turn this thing around towards the end and try and get towards the playoffs. But if you guys want to join us for our live watch party on Sunday, we'll be live at 12 p.m. Eastern Time for Week 14, Steelers versus Ravens at M&T Bank Stadium. Huge game, guys. Can't wait to share it with you guys. We got an hour of pregame coverage, live play-by-play and analysis during the game itself, and then, of course, post-game reaction coverage as well once the game is over. So from me and Ponzi, thank you guys so much for joining us here. It's Ravens week, and it's a big one, guys. So I can't wait to enjoy this game with you on Sunday. I'll see you guys then, and until then, guys, here we go, Steelers.